Okay, so we're going to be switching back and forth, so we just have a slight pause a couple of times to transfer the mic. All right, glasses. Okay, thanks so much for inviting us here. So our discussion is about this kind of subset of ritual space, which is memorial design. One of the most important tasks today is nurturing community. The forces of large-scale capitalism and our consumers' preoccupation are fracturing and tearing our social fabric. Society is becoming more polarized. It is only within community that we can live and prosper despite our differences. Rituals connect us to our roots, anchor us to our place, connect us to our heaven, and bind us to each other. Without rituals, there can be no family and no community. Within the tapestry of life and the life of a community, rituals are the golden threads. It's the timing of the conference is really interesting, being just after Memorial Day. And in rainy Portland, Oregon, this is the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and I attended the ceremonies there on a very wet and rainy Memorial Day. And you can see that the desire that people have to celebrate meaningful rituals, that they'll brave bad weather, whatever it takes. And I think that the other thing that we've noticed is that there's been an abundance of memorials, competitions and memorial projects in the last 10 or 20 years. And our feeling is that this speaks to people's need for expression of this connection to the spiritual realm through memorials. And that's why we're seeing so many, that people are just searching for channels through which they can express this aspect of their lives.
I'm sure many of us are familiar with Maya Lin's Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. It's the names across the granite wall as part of the design, and people coming and taking rubbings and leaving flowers and offerings. These, however, were not part of the initial design. The need, it shows this need for humans to want to participate, for the need for community, and the need for ritual. We see these offerings and these items and these gifts becoming more and more a part of that experience of the memorial. Part of it, that part that was not originally intended, has become a huge part of what we know and what we share about this memorial. We see the need to leave gifts happening all over. After Flight 93 in Pennsylvania, people came to leave offerings, leave messages. We even see this more recently and more locally here in Boston, just following the Boston Marathon. The items have shifted as the police fences have moved and allowed and opened up the street again. This is just outside Copley Square. We see people coming there to reset the flags and put them back up. Some people have reorganized them, but some people leave them as they are. But the things still keep coming. People who see it day after day have even noted that there's still new things showing up. And so we are here to really understand this need for rituals and this distinction between memorials which serve as a backdrop and memorials which serve as with the ritual as an integral part of the memorial experience. To deepen and enrich the experience of a memorial, the designer has the opportunity to propose rituals, whether they're anticipated or spontaneous. And in some cases, some memorials come about through rituals that have had a long-lasting effect in the community.
In Portland, Oregon, the firefighters have a ritual each June to honor those lost in the line of duty. It's named after Chief David Campbell, and it's been performed for over 100 years. Help me out here. Great, okay. In Portland, this is the memorial site, and the firefighters decided to move the memorial to a new site on the east side of the Willamette River across from downtown. The new site is adjacent to an existing fire station and this dock, which where the fireboat David Campbell is meant to be anchored and will be used as a museum. The design concept was to line the riverbank with large blocks of white granite representing all of the Portland firefighters, past and present. And to involve the entire community, we proposed a floating platform down on the water. The river level fluctuates about 10 to 20 feet over the course of the year. Among the white granite blocks, and you can see the floating platform there etched, that's the existing fire station, are the memorial stones, and they're engraved with the names of the fallen firefighters, and then they're fountains so that water flows over the stones and drains down towards the river. And then each of them is bathed in light and lit at night. So to create both a memorial and a community gathering space, we used a gradient between sacred space and profane or secular space. And the idea is that the memorial stones and the bell precinct, which you can see here, does this have a pointer?
On the top.
Top.
On the very top.
Okay, so here's the bell, and this is a more vertical portion of the wall. So this is the sacred precinct. That's also the high water mark. This is showing the platform at about mid-level. So the community space remains close to the water down in here. And there again, so here's the sacred precinct is here up high, and then the community precinct down below. And here's a view of it at night. In New York City, St. Vincent's Hospital is sort of considered the epicenter of the AIDS epidemic in New York. And here, and it's being converted to condominiums. So as part of that project, the city required the developer to create a park, the New York City AIDS Memorial Park, which is on this site, and they had a design competition for that. So a local nonprofit group proposed this competition. They held the competition. So it's not uncommon to have memorials within parks, statues or obelisks that one sort of pass by on a daily basis. And perhaps people gather around them on special days and so on. But to incorporate the memorial function on a daily basis was our challenge here. To make the really this idea of reverential space a daily part of city life. Our inspiration came from the idea of an impact crater, the work of Andy Goldsworthy and Edward Western, among others. So the idea is that developing the design, we sort of took off in this idea of the impact crater, and we're showing the ground plane torn up at the corners. And that was developed into this idea of the exterior of the memorial being made of black ceramic-coated glass to represent loss and death. And then the interior of this bowl is paved in white granite and is the place of the park and represents life. As we developed this design, we looked at the idea of rituals and came upon the idea of an eternal flame, and then looked at various ways that the eternal flame could be used. Again, this is this balance in comparison to the David Campbell Memorial, where we separated the territory of the sacred aspects and the secular aspects. Here we combine them into one space. So we looked for a way to make the sacred function of remembering people that died of AIDS in some other method, and the eternal flame evolved into this idea of a bronze altar, a place for leaving offerings, and a place for people to write the names of loved ones on paper streamers and put them into the flame. And you can see around this, there are tears in the granite paving out of which the exposed earth trees grow. And these are also places for people to sit. There is also an auditorium component of the program, which we put underneath one of the corners, and you can see a view of this at night. So, to the extent that sacred ground can be more fully integrated into the urban fabric, we try and create places where time slows down, where people feel differently, they feel more connected to place, to the past, and to each other. And with this memorial park, we tried to create a place of daily reverence within otherwise dense urban fabric. As Toni mentioned, within days of the crash of Flight 93, people arrived. This was a chain link fence set up to keep people away from the crash site, to leave offerings. I think, and they showed up in droves. This wasn't a trickle. This was a real flood of visitors to this site, and we began to wonder why. The 40 individuals on Flight 93 knew about the other planes. They knew that they had really no choice but to act, and that they almost certainly would perish. These people died to prevent the destruction of the White House or the Capitol building. They were, in a way, instant and everyday soldiers. And I think it's perhaps the thought, it could have been me on that plane, which compels people to come. The crash site was at the edge of an abandoned strip mine, some 1,400 acres. So the entire property was dedicated for use as the memorial. It's a very large site. And as you can see, it's a vast, somewhat desolate landscape. It's just now beginning to kind of regenerate. So the separate lives of these 40 individuals were brought together by chance and inextricably linked. This convergence was the origin, or the essence really, of the concept of life paths. These are rows of trees across the landscape that begin at the sort of far corners of the site. Each avenue of trees is oriented towards the hometown of the particular victim. They form then separate entrances to the memorial. The species of tree for each row is chosen by the family of the victims to express some aspect of their personal history. The design of memorials must acknowledge that the perception and meaning of a memorial will change over time. Grief will diminish and memories will fade. Eventually, there will be nobody left alive who had direct experience with the event, or who even heard, shall we say, the family stories. So early, while grief is strong, these avenues of trees stand out in the landscape. And after several generations, the original trees eventually die and become absorbed into the forest succession. By the time all the family members who ever knew the victim have passed, the individual trees will have also died. So they're no longer distinguishable as individuals, but instead they leave behind a path through a dense forest, an avenue of light, if you will. The trees become more than a design element then, they become part of one's understanding of time. Trees through history, have this role of marking generations of human existence as opposed to individual life. These avenues converge on the sacred ground, so-called the actual crash site, where we placed 40 glass pillars which are lit at night. And to recognize the community formed among the families of the victims, the ritual design proposed that the life paths and the sacred ground be reserved exclusively for the family's own use on the morning of September 11th, on each anniversary. And this provides a place for gathering, for time together, and for sharing a common place of remembrance and grief.
As part of my research and design thesis at Portland State University, I explored Portland, Oregon's Veterans Memorial Coliseum. I looked at its history, I looked at its story. I wanted to find why this building had become so important to the community and so forgotten at the same time. You can see it here. The VMC, as we short abbreviate Veterans Memorial Coliseum, was constructed in 1960 and designed by SOM. And it was originally intended to become a living memorial. You can see from the articles, newspaper articles from the historical archives, there was a lot of conflict and debate about its memorial aspects. However, the memorial aspects of this place were quickly forgotten with decades of concert and sporting events. When the city proposed to tear down the VMC, the community was outraged. They spoke up. They reminded the city that this place is a living memorial. And this concept of living memorials was developed after World War II. Traditional memorials typically served as reminders of the past, but we wanted to create living memorials as that which focused on the present. This translation led to many civic, spectator, and sporting arenas as memorials. The thesis investigation aimed to exploit the Coliseum's memorial aspects. By elaborating on these notions of time, community, and events, the proposed design evolved into a place commemorating the passage of time, a stone calendar in the center, in the entryway of the Coliseum. Each day a stone is laid to mark the passing of time. As the stones are laid in a continuous spiral, the circle of stones grows larger, indicating the pattern of days, making up each year, continuously, but not linearly. The past is no longer conceived as a sequence, but rather as a series of cycles. The basic cycle is the day, then the week, the month, the season, the year, and the generation. Through devising a calendar of events, the passage of time was translated into a ritual. It is not secular nor religious, but rather open to all communities to commemorate their special days as a collective group. Scheduled to occur each evening at twilight, public nominations would be made to allow the community to participate as part of the daily ritual and to personally connect to the physical memory placed in the ground each day. This living memorial design departs from the traditional standard by promoting the present through collective experiences, and the markings of time give way to the living. This diagram is part of the inspiration of the stone calendar and the design. It was just a graphic diagram to understand how time can be told and read as a cycle. And on the outermost part, we have the lunar cycle, which also is a part of how we can tell time, or how we have once told time. The next row indicates how much light we have each time. Each of these circles are made up of daylight and each of the twilights at the ends, gray bars, and then our evening. And as we move in, each row indicates a year, and the years continue to grow out. Right now, the red and the blue are indicating our basic national and federal holidays. And so as you lay time and events over time, you can see, for example, July 4th will always remain on July 4th. But we have Memorial Day, which changes which Monday it appears on. And so we can understand time, and we can understand when and how people can share a place and share a special place of events and their commemorative ceremonies.
Our final project that we're going to show you is a design competition for the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. Most people consider World War II a so-called just war, and its soldiers, of course, worthy of honor and remembrance. The war was nonetheless a horrific event, and it left in its wake the specter of worldwide nuclear war. So we chose to use this competition as an opportunity to design a memorial taking on a more active role in the community, looking forward as well as back. The design, entitled World War II Memorial, a Memorial for Peace, was developed in collaboration with the writer Barry Lopez. At the time that we did this competition, Barry had just published a story called In the Garden of the Lords of War. Some of you may know that story. It has as its purpose the goal of preventing war and ensuring the peace. To do so, we needed a visible symbol to represent the decision to go to war, one that would resonate with the public and could not be ignored. In 1996, the time of this competition, the concept of paying tribute to all the individuals lost in a war had become well established, but it seemed impractical to carve all the names in stone. Our design is configured as a circle of trees on a vast altar of water, supported by a black granite wall. There are 50 trees, one for each state. The trees, their life and death, are used to remind those in power of the cost of war. As part of the design, we created ritual experiences for our elected leaders, as well as opportunities for spontaneous public rituals. We're losing power?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Yep, this one. Each day of the year at first light, a United States senator takes up several rice paper streamers. Each one is inscribed with the name of one of the fallen. The senator ties these paper cenotaphs into the branches of the trees. Over time, wind and the seasons take these inscriptions. If for any reason the senator can't perform this ritual, only a member of his immediate family may substitute for him or her. In this sacred grove, the color of the leaves, their size, and their abundance on the branches announce the cycle of seasons. The roughening of the tree's bark, the girth of the trees, and their height continue to measure the passing years. This living colonnade speaks to us each day of peace. However, if a president should decide to send troops into battle after declaring a state of war, he or she must cut down all the trees. And the stumps will remain for the duration of the war. When peace returns, sapling trees are planted again, and the ritual of honoring those fallen in World War II starts again from the beginning. Through cycles of war, the memorial becomes more than a place of memory. It becomes a storyteller, a teacher, and a calendar, illustrating the continual relationship between the past, the present, and the future in the life of our community. Memorials create this opportunity. They have this power to strengthen the bonds of community, to help us reconcile death, and ultimately to help us understand the meaning of life. Thank you.